somewhat effective NFL player.
Yeah,
that's where they're shopping, by the way, right? Like,
yep.
I know people are kind of attaching themselves to Calvin Ridley. I don't know. We'll see. We'll see with the Jets how high they can go.
Yeah, I'm resigning myself to week one. The Jets coming out 3 wide and Allen Lazard being one of those 3 wide. I hope it's not the case, but I feel like that's probably where we're heading with the first sort of swings of the offseason going to backup quarterback, offensive line, and then like other main starting receiver. And then the draft is back to offensive line. I mean, Woody certainly did a great number on Zach Wilson's trade value and what the Jets are going to do at backup quarterback.
We didn't have one,
which I got a kick out of a little bit, but it's just interesting.
By the way, for anyone holding on to the theory that Woody made the Jets draft Zach Wilson because he's friends with his JetBlue uncle or whatever big brain theory was out there, I think that closed the book considering how hard he threw that shot out there.
Yes, I think
Rex Hogan and Joe Douglas drafted Zach Wilson.
Like we knew for a while, and like the Jets blatantly telegraphed they were taking Zach Wilson from the moment they had the second overall pick, and the entire world knew it. Which is why I'm not necessarily bought into like their interest in Fuaga being a smokescreen. I think they might just like him. They might just take him at 10, which would be okay with us. He's the first guy we were talking about in the draft season, just like the first guy we were talking about a while ago was Garrett Wilson, and that's worked out pretty well. So we're going to see. I mean, the next couple of weeks here, Combine is like 2-ish weeks away. Connor's going to drop his big board in about a week or so. We'll use War Room to talk about that. So if you're not War Room yet, now is the time because you're going to get the draft big board, the free agency big board, videos about said big boards. Also, we're finally going to have our hat drop, which will start with just being War Room specific. But around Combine, I think you get potential Zach Wilson trade for pennies. I think you get maybe Robert Saleh and Joe Douglas addressing all of the tension around their job and the Athletic article discussing them. You'll get some other rumors out there about how aggressive the Jets are going to be and how they're talking to this person and that person. And then as we get deeper into February, which we're halfway through February already, a lot of guys in that free agent list that we discussed last week, they'll start getting tagged. They'll start getting new deals. We'll take a fresh look at that list and be like, all right, who's pragmatic when it hit? I think it's March 10th or so that the league year opens. And that's when it's going to start being very interesting. And I think you'll see the vibes change a little bit for Jet fans when they add a couple of new and exciting pieces. And I understand being like, well, are they? Have they ever been able to really like do that and like beyond the Rodgers trade, like really surprise us in the early moments of free agency or in the offseason? And I just sort of feel like this regime has absolutely no choice. Now, who's going to be working with Joe Douglas to make these decisions now that he doesn't have Rex Hogan and Chad Alexander as we started mentioning them on the feed? I don't know. But man, you're 27 and 56. Like, let's not be holding the line at our numbers when it comes to this offseason. Let's go get some starters so this offense isn't the worst in league history. I'll just give you a pulse check here. Combine soon. You're going to be there. You're going to hear the chatter. League year is less than a month away somehow. I mean, literally, we just walked out of the goddamn Super Bowl stadium, and here we are. How aggressive is this going to be? Is this going to be like something that we haven't seen, especially from this regime? Or is it going to kind of be this like, maybe there's one pretty big move and everything else is kind of understated? I mean, this is a regime that signs some weird people early in free agency in the past. So I don't know. How are the fireworks going to start this offseason?
I think they're going to be aggressive. I do. I think they're going to come out in free agency and they're going to explore. The weird thing is, I mean, I guess after this year, Lazard's money doesn't matter. So if you find a way to open it up this year, after that, you're fine. In terms of if you pay a wide receiver this year, there's going to be a future where you have to pay Garrett Wilson, but then you're going to be able to clear the books of guys like Lazard. So the logic to me, this isn't what I've heard, but I have heard the Jets are going to be aggressive, and it's kind of the worst kept secret. We've talked about in this podcast how they're going to empty the tank to really go all in while Rodgers is here, while they have him here. It just seems like the pro market for wide receivers is, when you balance that in the draft, it makes sense you're going to go get your big tackle in the draft. So in theory, you're going to go get wide receiver help in the pro market. They're going to get a backup quarterback in the pro market. Everybody knows that. I think the biggest variables with the Jets is Do they pay an interior offensive lineman again? I'm talking like the mold of Laken Tomlinson, that level of contract, whether it's Robert Hunt, Lloyd Cushenberry, Andres Pete, whoever it is. Do they do that? And do they find a way to bring Bryce Huff back? Those are the two biggest variables with the Jets. They'll sign a wide receiver or trade for a wide receiver. We just don't know what degree or tier of wide receiver that will be. They'll swing big. Can they actually land that guy? We'll see. So they will add a wide receiver on the pro market. They will probably sign a backup quarterback to a double-digit deal in terms of millions of dollars. That's a lot of money right there. The variables will be to see, can they go out and get a big-time interior offensive lineman free agent? If they do that, do they cut Laken Tomlinson to open up more cap room and plug that player into that role? And then the rest of it, I mean, I guess the last thing that we don't talk about enough is if you lose Huff, you don't just go into next year with Jermaine Johnson and Will McDonald. That's not how this defense is built. When you watch the tape, you look at the snap counts. Are you going to go bargain shopping? Do you go get Josh Uche on a 1-year deal to take on the Huff role? Do you go get Leonard Floyd on a 1-year deal to take on the Huff role? Or Andrew Van Ginkel? Or that's probably really it for that market. Those guys are, 1 year, $7 to $8 million kind of deals. Do they try to get more stout next to Quinnen Williams? I think you have to, right? Yeah. I mean, I think that's the most underrated need for the Jets is that they need, whether it's a Shelby Harris, Quentin Jefferson again, although he's a pass rusher. Daquan Jones.
Yeah, Alwood's probably retires, so you gotta
fill at the end there. There's a lot of interior players. I mean, do you look to bring back Sheldon Rankins? In all seriousness,
I would love Sheldon Rankins back. I know make Dan happy.
We all would. Grover Stewart, if you need a big time run defender, which I think they do, I would go probably pay an interior defensive lineman to play next to Quinnen on one of those, very, very mid market deals. But yeah, I think the Jets. I think this is the best way to answer this question. When they're done with free agency, which I count trades in free agency because that's the pro market, I think they'll have 3 new starters. I think they'll have a new interior defensive line starter. I think they'll have a new interior offensive line starter. And I think they'll have a new wide receiver that you'd count in 11 personnel. So it doesn't have to be a top 2 wide receiver in your personnel packages, but top 3 and a backup quarterback. I feel like that's pretty comfortable right there. They also need a safety, by the way, but
they're gonna bring back Ashton Davis and Chuck Clark, and
I'd be fine with Clark.
They'll do the Davis, Clark, Whitehead, and our guy Bubble Wrap, and be like that's what we're doing at safety. I feel like I feel like they have 5 picks right now, I believe. All outside of number 10 on round 3 through 7. Is it 5
first
total?
Rounder, third rounder, 2 4s. Don't forget the infamous Jacob Martin trade.
Oh God, Jet Legend. Bring him back to replace stuff.
Yeah, so they have pick in the 4th round. They have pick the 112th pick in the draft and the 114th pick in the draft. They have a 6 and 3 7s because they always have 3 fucking 7th round picks. God forbid you could just be done with the draft. Although that 1 year they were done after the 4th round, but they do have 3 7th round picks. You have to package 2 of those to move back into the 6th or 5th.
Yeah, I mean, they're going to draft an interior defensive lineman at some point. I feel like that feels inevitable. The question is, can they finally avoid drafting the 26-year-old off-ball linebacker or the hybrid linebacker safety, corner safety that's probably never going to play?
It's on nobody's board.
Yeah, let's not do that. Let's take the extra shots at interior offensive line and receiver and whatever else is out there. Also, they could be shopping around for a backup running back as well. That's something we discussed a little bit. I mean, look,
crazy. Rodgers will want one.
Yes, definitely. Get the backup quarterback done thing early. Don't let that linger. I feel like there's more depth on the interior offensive line. Like, go get a credible starter so we can end the Laken Tomlinson nonsense. Think long and hard about finding a way to at least tag Huff and get some value there. If not, just keep him, because keep your best pass rusher when you have a great quarterback. This very small window, those 2 things go hand in hand. I'm intrigued in the Tyron Smith stuff. I just don't know why Dallas is going to let him go. If they are, sure. I mean, it's not a perfect answer, but it's probably better than most answers you're going to get for the next year or 2.
Yeah, they don't typically. That would be the stunner to me.
Yeah. That would be the big splash. That'd be like, all these years we talked about, are they going to get Conklin? Are they going to get this? Like Jack Conklin, like could they go get that big name?
It would feel like getting Faneca, right? Where he's
and that worked for 2 years.
I mean, that was great. So Tyron's 33. When the Jets signed Faneca, and I'm well aware they play different positions, but it was still a big need. Faneca was 32 when the Jets signed him. So it feels very Faneca. Faneca was a second-team All-Pro his first year with the Jets.
Oh, yeah. That O-line was outrageous. So I don't hate that approach considering their window. Receiver is going to be fascinating. It's a tough market to predict exactly what's going to happen, but you got to get some help from Garrett Wilson. I think everyone knows that and agrees with that. It's just, can they get creative and also maybe chase a name that, we're not even thinking of? So more rumors will start churning around the combine. I hope the Zach stuff is wrapped quickly so that both sides can just move on and we don't ever have to talk about it again. And then you keep it cranking from there, because free agency will come up very fast, and that's going to dictate a lot of the stuff that we're going to see in terms of the Jets' ability to trade up, trade down, or how and what they prioritize offense. It's going to be offensive line, but what offensive lineman maybe, and if they're willing to trade down because of how the rest of the offseason goes. So we'll be ready to go. We got the big board coming next week. Great time to move to War Room. We got Connor back on the road. Quick pit stop at spring training, then going out to combine. Who needs any rest at any point? And then,
oh my goodness,
we'll be rolling here. So look out for Pack Feed the rest of the week. Draft season Thursday, Buck the Trend Friday, TOJ Talk Saturday, Sunday AM Coffee Sunday, other guys Monday, draft board next week. New hats coming within the next week or two. Stay tuned there. Thank you everyone for listening, and we will talk to you soon.